there has also been talk of a city settlement. That has yet to be stood up as a decent source. Is that likely further down the line that Manchester City would try and settle?
Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Please hit the like and the share button. The 115 charges that have been leveled against Manchester City for the past 13, 14 months has been a huge talking point. If you go back to the UEFA, FFP allegations, the case that went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, this has been a subject surrounding City that has gone on for much, much time. There's been rumors in the last week of cease and desist letters being sent out to media outlets and YouTubers. Manchester City, of course, publicly said that they have unequivocal evidence of their complete and utter innocence in this situation. But now rumors start to emerge that a settlement could take place, that Manchester City and the Premier League could settle outside of court regarding these allegations. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is fans. I've seen City fans, United fans, Chelsea fans, whoever it may be, say they think this will be settled outside of court. The rumor mill is now starting to pick up. Let's take a listen here to TalkSport. Stefan and Simon Jordan discuss this, but I want your views and opinions in the comment section below.
In some shape or form.
Well, look, it's always desirable in any litigation to avoid a trial and to commercially get together.
This is very true.
With the other party, either in formal mediation or by less formal negotiation, and to settle your differences, because everybody knows that in any litigation, there is litigation risk. You can have the strongest case around, you can have the best barristers around, you can have the best solicitors, and all these parties involved, so, whether it be the Premier League, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Manchester City, Chelsea right now, all of them, they've all got preeminent cases. There is no inequality of arms when it comes to the actual legal spend. So any of these cases have a lot of risk. And so, of course, naturally, it would make sense for parties to settle. But
you wouldn't think, with due respect, that Manchester City, I have no, besides the conspiracy theory that Man City fans seems to think I have against them, I would suggest that Man City's fighting fund for legal representation would be greater than that of the Premier League's.
Well, theoretically, City could have access to more money, but the reality is the Premier League has no limit to what it spends, and its spend on legal fees has gone through the roof over the last 5 years.
It's a really interesting point, because a lot of people believe that the Premier League want to settle out of court because they don't have the financial might to take on Manchester City. But when all this case first came out, this case will happen. It cannot be taken to the courts of arbitration for sport. Once it's settled at this level, that's it. So as much as City could afford some of the very best lawyers in the world, there's only so much they can do. Let's not act like the Premier League isn't a £1 billion organisation that can also afford some of the very best lawyers in the world.
In terms of who represents the Premier League, look at the names, right? There's no that they're represented by the best firms in the city, Linklaters, Bird and Bird, the best KCs. Adam Lewis is a regular appearer. These are the highest quality KCs and law firms. There's no question that they've got excellent legal representation. So I just don't accept.
But it's an interesting perspective that it was categorised that UEFA, who have, again, significant access to funds to be able to support themselves against the onslaught of a very highly motivated and well-paid legal team that Man City have, that's been perceived as almost a cottage industry now for Man City, that they were outmanoeuvred and outmanned by the financial resources that Man City are prepared to deploy against the reality of what the governing bodies are.
Well, the situation with that was a little different, as I say, because you can essentially keep taking it back to court, back to court, back to court. When I read the original Times article surrounding this, I understand, and if I'm wrong, please put links into the comment section to help educate me on this. But there is a limit to how many appeals and how many challenges can go in. So you're not going to have an endless supply of legal costs. In my very, very humble opinion, I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think that's going to take place in the same in the same way, but I could be wrong. But it could be wrong. I'd love to get your views and your opinions on that. Remember, we are sponsored today by NordVPN. You should always protect yourself online, whether it be your data, whether it be your personal information, security details, bank cards, credit cards. You need top tier encryption. What's so amazing about NordVPN is it also lets you surf and use the internet incognito. So don't worry about private browsers, whatever it may be. Whoever pays your Wi-Fi bill, whether you're using it at work, whether you live with your parents, whether it's your partner, they can see exactly what you're doing on the internet at any time. Now, I don't think you're up to any craziness. I don't think you're up to any madnesses. But it is nice to have privacy. In 2024, that is very, very difficult indeed. But the best part of having NordVPN is getting access to content anywhere around the world. And I use Setanta Sport. It is $3.99 a month. I pay for it via Apple, the Apple Store. And it gives me access not only to the Premier League football, 3 p.m. games, but multiple other sports as well. You've got the UFC, you've got F1. As you can see, there's the NHL if you watch it, Wimbledon when it's on, the NBA is all available for just $3.99 a month. When you sign up today to NordVPN, all the information is in our description below.
Hold on,
has been too aggressive,
hold on,
has
Stefan.
pursued them too much, and has argued too strongly.
What you're talking about is two different things. You're talking about arguing about Nottingham Forest breaching financial fair play. You're talking about the reputational damage of a football club being accused of fraud. There's a whole different set of dynamics. The football clubs that are defending themselves against accountancy arguments is not the same principle to some extent.
Yeah, I agree with Simon Jordan, and I've defended City on this all year. Whenever I see Everton, Forest fans say, why haven't City been done yet? It's a completely different scenario, completely different situation entirely. It's like comparing filing your tax return late to robbing a bank. It's just ridiculous.
What Man City are being accused of. Man City are being accused of cooking the books, bucking the system, and pretty much fraud, which is a whole different landscape, whole different dynamic, a whole different reputational value to Man City. Because if they get found guilty of it, Stefan, not only do they underpin one of their main reasons for being in sport, which is reputational enhancement, you've now got a nation state in the dock for owning a football club and effectively fraudulently doing it through the football system.
Of course, we've talked about that before. But of course, the two sides of that are when you go round making those allegations, as the Premier League has done, you make sure, and UEFA, you make sure that you're well resourced. You make sure that you get your house in order in terms of making those allegations, and you make sure you're well resourced on the legal representation side, and that's the reality.
Bringing those charges, they've gone past allegation stage, haven't they?
They've brought the charges.
Towards charges,
of course, but the preparation and the work now towards the independent commission will be done with a huge investment from both the Premier League side and the Manchester City side.
But
I stand by my position. There's no inequality of arms.
The question that you asked is:
do you agree there's no inequality of arms? Premier League versus Man City. I want to hear your comments below on that one.
Settlement.
Yeah,
I've always maintained that there will be a settlement, not because I want one, but because it's the lesser of two evils, because everybody's in an invidious position. The Premier League are damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they bring this action as successful against Man City, they've just discredited their own Premier League. If they don't, they're considered to be eunuchs.
The issue
this is where I disagree. Right? And we're getting into the crux of it now. And it was important to get the back information on this video. And I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're hitting like buttons and subscribing. I think this is such an important talking point in football. I know there are some Manchester City fans that don't want to hear this discourse, have this conversation at all. They want to bury their heads in the sand. But I think it's important to understand what's going on. Where I wouldn't be surprised if there was a settlement, because they're all commercial people. A settlement, though, I think actually looks bad for both parties, because we may never get to see the accusations or the evidence or hear Manchester City's response. So although they may settle out of court, and probably if they settle out of court, they'll take fines and maybe a very small points deduction for not cooperating, but the rest of it will be buried. But then fans will never have the answer. Then fans will never be able to make up their mind. Then anyone who thinks City have cheated will continuously believe they've cheated. Now, that may not matter to some Manchester City fans, but I think in terms of legacy, that will follow you around, because you haven't defended yourself, you've settled it on the side type thing. So I think it could look bad in that way. Equally, if the Premier League win, Simon has just said they've discredited their own league. How does that make sense? That logic dictates that if a boxer is found to be cheating, boxing should cover it up. If a cyclist is cheating, whether it be drug use or whatever it may be, let's hush it up. Let's brush it under the carpet so we don't discredit ourselves. We've actually seen that type of behavior, whether it be financial irregularities, doping, whether it be the way some institutes in Hollywood and the BBC have worked, where they brush things under the carpet. It becomes a far bigger scandal later on down the line, as and when these things come out. I don't think it discredits the Premier League in any way, shape, or form. I think it shows that, of course, cheating can go on, and it isn't always detected straight away. It will end up leading, if the Premier League win, to more controls being put over clubs. But at the same time, what it demonstrates is no matter your power, no matter your size, no matter what you win, no matter your manager, if you cheat, you'll be punished. I think it sends a message of integrity from the Premier League's perspective. It doesn't mean every team is always acting in an integral way, but you can still have integrity. What would be much worse, in my opinion, is for City to be guilty, for it to be for it to be brushed under the carpet because the Premier League are worried it will make them look bad. That makes no sense to me, but I don't know what you think and feel. Equally, I think from a City point of view, anyone who thinks they're innocent, I think they need their day in court. I think they should. I mean, they've said they've got unequivocal, undeniable evidence that they're innocent. If the money's no object to them in terms of how much they're spending, defend yourself. I've stood by what I've said. If I see that evidence and it is clear they have done nothing wrong, I'll support Man City from not their football team. Just add that right. I will support them and say, well, they didn't cheat. They've proven it. But if it is hushed up and we never get answers and they essentially pay it off, I'm not going to be standing there saying outright they're cheats, but I'll never know if they were innocent. That's just my view. But look, I'd love to get your take on this, people. Could there be a settlement? Is that the best thing for the Premier League? Is that the best thing for Manchester City? I really want your opinions on this. Try not. I mean this. Try not to be write nonsense in the comment section. I really would love to engage on your opinions on this because it's such a fascinating subject that I think impacts the Premier League. It could potentially rewrite the last 10 to 12 years of the Premier League's history. And it could change football for the foreseeable future, both domestically and internationally. This is huge. Hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribing. And we'll speak to you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye.